Hello everybody. A customer had asked me if I could do instructions to go with these sabers, and I'm not really good at that, so I thought I'd do a video. I'll probably talk too much, bear with me. I'll try not to jump around, but I always do. Sorry. Alright, so I guess I'll start up here at the front. Blade plug. I'm not really a blade plug guy, so it is just what it is. Let you guys dress it up if you want to. I have set screw right here. It's forward a little bit more, but I didn't want it going through the shroud. So if you use the TCSS holder, it's going to sit right here, and that set screw is going to catch the very front of it. So your blade depth is basically to this last groove right here, if you use the TCS holder. The switches here, I guess, is the main thing I want to talk about for the installers. This is an 18 thread on the switch holder, works very smooth. So when you're taking this in and out, if something don't feel right, it's probably not. Back it out and make sure it's lined up right. Again, I have this threaded into the switch holder, and it's very smooth also. So if something don't feel right, just stop. But let's see how easy that threads. So I mean, you could probably wire it up without even taking the switch out of the holder. But again, going in, if it don't feel right, stop and check it out. But they all go pretty smooth. Get it in there as far as you can. Take a little pair of needle nose pliers and grab onto the contact that you would solder to. And just finish it off. If you want it to never come loose, I recommend using some, I wouldn't use tape. Tape wrapped around this is going to make it too tight. But you could use some pipe dope or something like that, where you could just rub a little bit on the thread, just enough to make it sticky. I want to get in here and show this. This switch here, it's a little bit of tight quarters on this one. So I did have to do some mods to the switch itself. And I'll show you about that. But I have the switch, you know, mounted in here. It's nice and snug, shouldn't come out. If you do remove the switch, this is basically the alignment you want. You want it kind of squared up in between this hole and this hole. You know, it looks crooked in the holder, just the shape of it, but that's basically the alignment you want. I have a piece of rubber under here, a little tiny piece of rubber. Just enough. I mean, you probably don't need it, but it made me feel better. You know, I milled it out enough to where the rubber would then be putting pressure on the bottom switch, just to make sure it never popped out and shorted or anything like that. So you can see this is a TCSS switch with the 4 prongs. And sorry. And that is what it is now. So I got rid of 2 of the prongs completely. I'm trying to show these next to each other so you can see exactly what I had to do should you ever need to replace it. I then filed this down flat a little bit, but not so much to where you lost your prongs that held it together. Just enough to make a difference. Then I took a Dremel and dremeled in the 2 contacts so that to make sure that they couldn't touch anything inside of the saber. And I rubbed some RTV black gasket maker over that to further insulate it. You know, I tried to be pretty thorough about that. And then this side, I just straightened them out and shortened them up. And here, where the switch area is, You know, the switch sits on top of this shelf here, well, on top of the rubber that's sitting on top of this shelf. I machined down another little shelf to create a little extra space for solder connections. And then you can see there is a hole right here. I guess my lighting is kind of bad, but there is a hole right here for the wire to come through. Now, to create the space I needed, the threading here for the switch holder, I machined that out just a little bit. Thread's still all the way through, and it's an 18 thread, so you know it's not a problem as far as holding, but when putting this in, it's easy to get crooked. So, you know, turn it in a little bit. If it don't feel right, back it out. But you can see, you know, it's a smooth thread, it holds, but I needed that space to make sure you had clearance for your solder connection. So just make sure, if it starts going, I'm going to try to make it go in wrong. If it's, now I can't make it go in wrong. But if it starts feeling like it's not, you know, just not right, back it out until you hear that little click again, and then thread it back in there. All of these screws, you know, I machined these. These are threaded at 1032 just because I was already set up from where I threaded this at 1032. They all go all the way through the shroud and the emitter. These two go through both. These two go through both. The screw through here goes through both. You know, I just want to make sure that everything is nice and snug. If you should ever take this shroud off because you want to refinish it, you know, do some powder coating or just whatever, you'll notice that, you know, at about these 2 points, there's 2 slightly raised ribs. That's so that the shroud can sit snug without rattle on its own, and plus create a little bit of space so that you have a chance of not tearing up your finish while putting the shroud on. Just in case. I mean, most of you probably won't be getting into that. But so now let's get into the inside of it. Also, I did I put blue Loctite on these and the pins. If you ever need to pull them out, just a little heat. All the finish on here can handle the heat. Just be sure to take this out because of the crystal in there. It is glued in with these couple drops of E600, but everything else can handle the heat. There's the chassis adapter. Set screw right here. Make sure I got the right wrench. Nope. These are 440 set screws for this. So you can just mount your chassis to this, slide it in, get your wires through there. Now on the chassis rods, what I found works best is to hammer the tip of this flat, tip of your rod flat, not completely flat, just, you know, enough. Then slide it in from the back. I created a little area, relief area there, so you can get these in from the back. Push it through, then tap it in with the punch or whatever, and then Dremel off the excess. I had to remove 2 rods on mine because I was changing what I was doing, and I actually had to put it in a vise and press them out. That's how good it held. So that's what I recommend doing. You can glue or do whatever you want, but that was a real solid method for me. Let me step back a little bit. On using this, it's going to butt right up to the switch. Or just before it. I mean, like maybe a 1/16 of an inch before it. So that's going to sit about like that. And by the time with my experience anyway, by the time you get this tightened in on that, you usually have about a 1/16 of an inch there. So you'll have about an 1/8 of an inch between the heatsink and the switch holder. So it shouldn't be an issue. And that's if you want to get your full blade depth of, I think it was 1.3 inches. You know, you could always slip it out just a little bit if you wanted to feel safe about that. The little crystal in here, you know, of course it's not a real diamond. Little fake crystal I got from Michael's maybe. All I did was, you know, I drilled a hole through here to get a little light from the blade to shine through. Then I dremeled a little spot in the center of the crystal because I wanted it to still have that diamond look about it. I didn't want to remove the whole backing because then it would just look like glass in there. If you ever want to experiment and do something that you think would look better, you know, I'm sure you could just take a rod, push that out real easy. Like I said, I just did a couple drops of E600 on that. It is a 5mm crystal. So, you know, you could always play around with that. It's not the perfect solution, but, you know, I just thought it was catchy. Mine was a 1020 thread. I did a 1032 on your guys's so that I could have a slightly larger hole in the center. I don't know if it'll make a difference, but I did it anyway. And like I said, these do thread all the way through both pieces. This is a stainless steel TCSS screw that I just modified the head on to make it look different. So when putting this stuff together, should you ever take the shroud apart, with these things all being threaded through here, you really got to get your alignment good. You don't want to tighten nothing down. Excuse me. You don't want to tighten nothing down until you've gotten everything started and everything wiggled in place. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. You know, you want to have everything started. Get everything wiggled to where it started and the threading feels smooth, and then tighten everything down. There was one customer that purchased this hilt without the finish. He's the one that's going to have to mainly deal with that. But I did try to be certain that there are no sharp edges around anything that I machined here. I did test with blades, so you know it could fit. My average bore on the emitters was 1.0075. which seemed to work pretty good. Should you have a blade that's, you know, too tight and you want to open it up a little bit, go to the auto parts store and get you a honing tool for brake cylinders. Works great. Just do it before you do the install. So, because you do got to use oil when honing that, and you don't want to get oil all and mess up your LED. Alright, so I can move on, I guess. Oh, one thing about the switch I found. If you are going to be carrying this a lot, doing a lot of conventions or whatever, and you chose the orientation to where the switch is going to be hanging out from you, these switches are easy to activate. I just couldn't get around that, but I really like this switch. It went with the design. So, you know, you might want to consider the tack switch being your activation and this being your auxiliary. It's just something for you to consider. If you just bump into something, it's going to activate. So just a heads up. Alright, I tried to be thorough with checking all of my threads. Everything worked good to me. These are not lubricated right now. I will lubricate them before. I wanted to check them without lubrication, so oil's not making me think something's good when it's not. Just so you can see, my threads all match. While I'm doing this, I found that if you're right-handed, you see that's the front of it and this is the rear. If you're right-handed, this is the most comfortable position on this gear section. If you're left-handed, you might want to flip it around. I mean, everything's pretty smooth to where it doesn't really matter, but you know, if you're particular about something like that, you can play around with it and see what's more comfortable to you. But again, my threads work all ways. This is the pommel cap adapter. Fits up on here too, so everything's good to go. This thread is not the same as these, of course, because it's smaller, so don't expect that. Now the pommel cap. You might have seen where I had a post about it possibly getting stuck, and I machined these notches in here. For me, it was not an issue. I use blue Loctite on mine. I have no intention of taking it out. If I do, I'll throw it in the oven and heat it up and get it out, do whatever I got to do. But I didn't want you guys to have to fight with that should you ever want to. So I'm just going to send it to you lubed up. I recommend using blue Loctite, putting it in here and being done with it. Then just make it a part of the pommel. If you ever need to refinish it, you know, you're going to be stripping it down. You can throw it in the oven and get it out. Nothing in here is heat sensitive. So, you know, it's stainless mesh. I got a steel C-ring in there holding it, you know, so everything should be good. But if you get in the situation to where this is stuck and you want to get it loose, I'm sending this fender washer in here with all the sabers. These two grooves, you can just put your fender washer in here and break it loose. Got to apply some pressure because they're not deep grooves. I didn't want them visible from the outside, so they're not deep grooves. If you get in a situation where you can't get enough pressure and get it broke loose, put your fender washer in a vise and get it lined up on there, and you can really get some pressure on it like that. But, you know, I don't expect it to get that bad. This is just in case. I had one that wanted to stick to the booster. Well, I have a pair of gloves that's, you know, kind of rubbery, and they work for me to grab it. If it sticks to the booster, you can find a piece of sticky rubber or one of them rubber strap wrenches or whatever. Whatever you do, don't put a pair of pliers on it. It's thin, it's aluminum, tear it all up. But, you know. Now, on alignments, I got all of them as close as I felt comfortable with. I tried to definitely not go past the dead center of where it needed to be. Some of them might be just a little bit before. If you feel like you ever need to mess with the alignment, the two places, really the only two places I recommend you honing anything, would be the face of the grenade section, and then you could then go back and tape it off and repaint it and weather it the way you want it. Or the face of the adapter. Those are really the only two places I would recommend trying to do any kind of honing. You know, say if a couple years down the road the threads do wear a little and it gets just a little bit past where you want it, you know, you just take it another 1/8 of a turn by honing and get it lined back up again. The pommel adapter has a little thickness here. Has a little thickness here to where, you know, you could probably go get almost a full turn out of it and still not change the look out of it by honing it down. But take caution with that. Again, that's just in case. Let me get the chassis adapter back in so I can show you the chassis parts do fit. And while I'm looking at it, you know, if you are doing your own install or whatever, you know, I did smooth out all holes and whatnot, but still use shrink tubing through the holes, through the metal ports or whatever. I mean, there's no need to risk a high dollar install with a wire short nail. Alright, so I have the chassis adapter in. I'm going to drop my chassis parts in that I'll be using on mine. There's a crystal chamber. There is a battery holder. There's a prism board holder. There's charge port. And there's a 24mm speaker. You can see that the 24mm speaker sticks out about that far. So when putting the pommel on, I have not actually measured this, but I'm going to take an uneducated guess, I guess. I mean, you can see there's still some space in there. So I'd say you have about 1/8 of an inch with this setup from the 24mm speaker holder up to the C-clip that is holding the pommel insert in. So, you know, you should be just good enough to take care of what you want to do with the prism. Now, I don't know the length of the CF8 or CF9 board holder. I haven't looked into it. If it's a little bit longer, then you know you'd want to look into something else. Now, on this crystal chamber, it's got these ribs here. It would be nothing to lose a rib if you needed to gain a little extra space there. So, you know, so it's small anyway. You're not going to have the huge crystal chamber like some of you guys want, maybe, unless you get a special one done. But the crystal might set up in here just a little bit further. But, you know, if you gotta have a little more space, that's a method to do it. Or, you know, lose your charge port, but I guess you want that. You could always install something up here if you had somebody professionally do that. Again, I did take a lot of time on making sure that all of these threads were compatible and clean. Excuse me. This center piece here, these are 2 separate pieces. I just couldn't machine all of that as one piece. That is held in place with JB Weld. It's high temp, it's strong, you know, so it can handle being thrown in the oven, and I don't think it'll ever come off. Stainless mesh. On these D-rings, I threw them all in a blast cup and just made them look a little old and weathered. I did not completely remove chrome, but I didn't want them looking totally new either. So, you know, you can take it from there on doing what you want to do with the looks. On the finish of your guys' sabers, I made y'all's look a little dirtier than mine. I kind of wanted mine to be a little dirtier, and I might go back and redo it. But my main thinking on that is I wanted to leave you a little space to do a little rubbing also. You know, if you want to have the grip to where it looks worn where your hand is, you know, I didn't want to take away that option from you. So, you know, you could do a little rubbing with a little Scotch pad and get it looking exactly the way you wanted it. And plus, I just really think these need to be dirty and old looking. The finish on here is moly resin. It is used in the firearms industry. It's good. It's not as good as powder coat. It can be scratched. But after it has cured good, it is pretty durable. I've used it on some firearms and other things, and like I say, it can be scratched, but it's still fairly durable. It's not perfect. I like it though. It's good because I can use it in an airbrush and bake it on. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy these sabers, and I hope that I've made you happy with the quality of them. Speaking of quality, you know, I'm not running CNC equipment. I've got little stuff out in my shop, you know, little machines. So you will find some machine marks. So, you know, it's no secret. I honed the inside of all this to make sure that it's all smooth and looks as good as possible. But for example, the booster, I had to mount these several times to get all this machining done, and I had to mount them kind of hard to do that. So you will see a few little marks from where I had them mounted in my machine. I didn't feel it was important enough to take away wall thickness to try to get rid of those marks that nobody's going to ever see. So, you know, that's just there. You have to deal with that. But I honed these. Oh, excuse me. I did hone these, you know. They're all smooth. So there'd be no issues with your chassis sliding in and out. Nothing to catch on wires should you have some loose wires, depending on the type of install you do. And I honed the inside of here too. I did paint a little in here. I just wanted to make sure that the ridge had to look. I didn't want to have want you to have a blade plug in there, and then see a strip of shiny aluminum, you know. But if you decide you need to hone this out any, you know, that paint will come out easy. It's thin paint. This paint goes on thin. It's meant to be used on firearm internals too, so you know it does go on thin. Anyways, that is it. I am going to be shipping the first batch out today. I will send everybody tracking info. So, thanks everybody. Have a good day.